Good day and welcome to another episode of Dungeoneering School. My name is Rick, and here we're going to talk about 6 tips to be a better player at your first D&D session. So last time we talked about your first session of D&D as DM. Today we're going to talk about a player. Now, before we start, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. If you like what I do, stick around. I have new content every week. Usually comes out on Sunday, maybe Monday if I'm a little behind. So, today we're going to talk about 6 different things. The first one is find what speaks to you. There are a million different combinations of classes and races. Come prepared with a couple. If you're doing a session 0 and everybody is planning together, come with a couple ready. Because don't be 100% set on one thing. You could come and find out that everybody wants to be a cleric. Well, I know everybody could be a cleric. But for the good of the party, for good of diversity, you want to have different classes. Everybody should be different classes or at least different specializations of some kind. Now I'll throw in the disclaimer, if everybody wants to be the exact same cleric, you can run a party that way. You'll probably have a lot of fun. That's no problem. For cohesive reasons, you want to have a good diversity for your party. If you show up and you are hard set on something and somebody else is hard set on something, now you guys got to compete on loot. You got to compete in every same category. Every character has a specialty. And if you take the same specialty as somebody else, you are going to come into conflict. Sometimes that conflict can be very fun and engaging. Other times it will be frustrating and not very fun. So I think for the sake of your sanity, it's easier just to say, try and pick something nobody else has. Which brings us to number 2. Number 2, coordinate your characters. This seems like it goes hand in hand with 1, but there's a big difference. Learning to pick something else is much different than coordinating with your team. One just requires you to be flexible. The other one requires you to have a tactical mind. Now, D&D is a game about role-playing and having fun, but at the same time, being good at what you do will help your party. It will help you continue to be successful. It'll help you to have a long-lasting campaign. Everybody will remember the games where you do silly stuff, where you do stupid stuff. But you will have a special place in your heart for a game where everybody was coordinated in a way. So when you coordinate your characters, you're looking for a couple different things. You want a couple people to be good in the front line. You need somebody to take the damage, to take the hatred. You need a couple people to be good at healing. You need a couple people to be able to deal damage. Depending on your party size, you may have multiples of each of these. If not, I have a party of 3. We have damage, we have healing, and we have a tank. All simple concepts. You can throw in support, you can throw in battlefield control. I know all these are pretty tactical for your first game, but just try and be flexible. Always make sure that your party is well-rounded. It will not help you to have 5 characters that are good at talking and nobody that's good at fighting. Unless you run a game where all you do is talk. Me personally, I like games where I fight stuff, so that's hard for me. But try and keep your party well-rounded. That's going to bring us to number 3. Number 3 is learn your place. Now that you've chosen what you are going to be, whether it be damage, tank, healing, you need to learn your place. Try and figure out what combinations work with other characters. Try and figure out what you are good at. Most of D&D can be summed up as trying to figure out what you're good at. Because as a character, you may think it's one thing. On paper, it may seem like something. And when you actually play the game, it's a totally different thing. Try and learn your place. And what I mean by that is, if you are a bard and you have a very high charisma, and the DM asks you, it looks like there's footprints on the ground. Would anybody like to roll a survival check to see if they recognize what kind of creature there is? Does that not mean you can't say anything? No. But you have to think about, how are you good at that? If you have a ranger in your party who is good at that, let him do it. It is his time to go. You have to share with your teammates to make a cohesive story. Nobody wants to play with the guy who's bad at everything, but does it first before anybody else can do anything. It's cute and it's funny the first 3 times. After session number 3, you've had enough. When you learn your place, you know what your specialty is, and you'll be willing to branch out to help other people. Try and think of everybody else as part of your story. Do not try and make it about you. Which is going to bring us to number 4. Number 4 is get into character. I'm not saying you have to show up in a full plate armor suit to your D&D session. I'm not saying you put on your headphones for Discord and you are ready to go with your best pirate voice, but you could be. Everybody has their own way of making a character. Don't think of your character as a piece on a chessboard. If you want to play purely tactical, there are groups like that. But D&D probably isn't the best medium for that. There are other games that do more tactical play. D&D is about a shared story experience. When you play D&D, you need to figure out how your character thinks. And honestly, if you're on the fence about your first character, lots of people make it themselves. My first character was me as a wizard. That's fine. But start to branch out. Start thinking, well, I know I would do that, but what would my character do? Don't be shackled to the idea that your character would do something. Obviously, for the sake of cohesiveness of the game, do not make a character that doesn't want to do anything. If somebody shows up in my game with a character that doesn't want to do anything and is unwilling to do something, then I say, okay, well, what's your next character going to be? Because nobody has time for the guy who's like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. To everything. I understand that there are situations that you may not want to do something, and that's fine. But for the sake of the story, do not be the one that doesn't want to do anything. Along with your character comes voices, mannerisms, activities. When I make a character, I get into character. My fighter, Sergey, he had a Russian accent. And to get into character, I would literally, under my breath, around everybody else, when nobody's looking, I would speak my special phrase for him that would get me into character. Because when I try and talk in the Russian accent, I do pretty good. But when I start off with, "Da comrade, now I am thinking like Sergey. It is bringing me into the moment, and I have myself in here ready to fight off all enemies who oppose me." You see, I use a different voice for him because, one, it's easier for other players to understand when I'm talking as me and when I am talking as him. It is very easy to look at other player and say, yes, would you happen to have 5 gold pieces I can borrow? Where if I look at my friend and say, hey, do you have 5 gold pieces? He might say, well, hold on, let me check. Yeah, I do. That moment was lost because nobody knew that I was in character. Now, you don't have to have a crazy accent. It could be the tone and inflection of your voice. Maybe you speak really fast. Maybe you're over here looking and touching and talking really fast. Maybe it's just how you speak. Maybe you're just always really sarcastic. Or perhaps maybe it's the opposite. Maybe in real life, you're very sarcastic. But right now, you're very, very serious in what you're doing. Anything you do can help other people identify when you're being you and when you're being your character. So, number 5 is think about what you want to do before your turn. When combat starts and everybody is fighting, you don't have to have it set in stone because I know circumstances can change, but have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. There is nothing worse than going into a combat with all the other players and that it gets to that one person, you know it's coming. It gets to their turn and they've been looking over in this direction and they say, John, it's your turn. And he goes, and then he finally looks at the map and realizes that whatever he thought he was going to do apparently is not going to work. Now John is scrolling through his phone, looking at his spells, trying to figure out which one. He's reading them. and you're watching all your other players go, and they're looking at their phone now, or they're opening their books, or they're talking to each other. It breaks your cohesiveness. It breaks the immersion of the game. Try and figure out, have a plan A, B, and C if you need to. Do whatever you can to keep the ball rolling. Because honestly, the only thing that slows down D&D is the action economy. So the way it works is, since everybody has an action, everybody has a turn. If your turn takes 5 minutes compared to the next person who takes 3 minutes, if everybody took 2 minutes for combat, a whole round might last be 10 minutes. But if you get between 1 and 10 minute turns, now all of a sudden combat, which could have taken maybe 20 minutes, is now taking an hour and a half. It depends on how many players you have and how long they take. You control the speed of combat. The DM only has all the monsters, and the monsters are usually pretty simple to control. They have a couple of attacks, they might have a couple of spells. Most of the time the DM is not going to take very long on his turn, unless he has a load of monsters. Now, my last tip, number 6. Number 6 is to remember to always have fun. You're here to play the game, but you're here to have fun. Everybody should be having fun. It is a shared responsibility of everybody to make sure everyone is having fun. If you have somebody in your party who doesn't look like they're having a good time, try and engage with them. If somebody's shy, gauge how much you want to engage with them, but try to involve them with it. Don't try and make it about 1 or 2 people. If you have that person who's kind of reserved, maybe they want to be that way. That's fine. But a lot of times for new players, try and get everybody involved. If you see somebody hasn't said anything in a while, ask them a question. Bring them into the conversation. You see tracks on the ground, and you say, John, who is now paying attention, his combat is over. He's now quiet and contrite from feeling bad about taking so long in combat. Bring him back into the game. Theobald, would you come here for a second? Look at these tracks. What do you think caused these? This gives him the opportunity to kind of jump in with you. He doesn't have to be the one who understands, but maybe he has a random guess. Maybe he has an idea. It involves and brings your party together, because as characters, you may not know each other very well. Even if your best friends in life are all sitting around you at a table, he may not know. So what you need to do is have fun with them. Bring them into the game. That's how you guys are going to succeed, and that's how you're going to have fun. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in our Discord, where we talk about anything D&D related, and we will teach you anything you need to know about D&D. Thank you very much.